What do you mean about celebrating?
When I took a walk around town after the first week, the building that struck me most was the railway station, which was very charming. There's two sounds that really dominate, and one is the railway that brings people in and takes people away again. And the other one is this Song of Freedom, which is these motorcycles. So even when the town has gone to sleep, it was like a sign of life. So when everyone's shut their doors, closed their curtains or whatever, there was this great... They're not really going very fast round town. And the terrain, the geography of the location here isn't that challenging for bike riding because it's very flat, the Danish countryside. But you could just see the great kind of fun and pleasure that was being kind of sort of taken out of it. Everywhere becomes very commercial. As soon as the shops shut, that's it, life goes. And so it's a bit of life that continues when everyone else has gone home. The combination of these two things, of the railway station and the scooter boys, and then realising that the railway station is where they congregate as young people. It's kind of like a private space. The two things kind of fused in my head. As an artist, I'm very attracted to using spaces that have had a different narrative. Previously, I've done exhibitions in a lift shaft and a bank vault, in a water pump station, and a one-woman cinema in a wardrobe. So I'm not that attracted to a kind of pristine white cube of a gallery, because that seems like a very hollow and empty place. And also, if you do things in different places, people feel much more comfortable, like the art is much more accessible or relevant to them. It's really been a project against the clock, because I was only here for a week. We didn't know how it was going to be reacted to, because we're outside the language, outside the country, outsiders as artists, and obviously outsiders in terms of this group of young people as well. So, who are we, these kind of strange English artists who turned up in their town, on their patch, on their territory? We've had really positive feedback. The people in the town, the support from people in Sulis. The young people who did turn up on the day that we were filming, it was a real issue of trust for them, because the 2 weeks preceding our notice going up about do they want to be part of this exhibition and art project, the police had been confiscating their motorcycles, and so they thought it was a kind of a police trap. So it's a very ambitious project that we wanted to do. For me, as an artist coming here, it was also important to make a connection between Sulis, the castle, and the village and the town, because it felt like a great separation. Even though the grounds are used as kind of public grounds, people jog and look at the lake or whatever, it felt like a very big separation, and I felt very conscious to want to make a connection between the town and the house here, so there was less of a separation, so it becomes more relevant to the context where it is, rather than a kind of sort of separate elitist kind of thing. And I think you can't get any more accessible than put it in the railway station, really. So that was my motivation. But the whole thing is an experiment from beginning to end.
Tell me about the portraits you were making with them.
I wanted to do a complete contrast and do these very still filmic video portraits inspired by 19th century portraits of nobles in their hunting clothes, in very formal surroundings, in libraries, looking slightly grand. And those are the kind of photographs that are normally done of very, rich or influential people or nobility, and obviously of people who are much older, who are kind of sort of settled and established. And so the idea was to turn that on its head and to do these very still portraits of the scooter boys. And I made a little setup which gives a kind of flavour. So they're surrounded by library books, and 19th century setup with their motorcycle, looking quite serious with the chin up. And the idea of that was again to try and look at who they are in a different way. And amazingly, they responded very well to that, with an incredible amount of dignity. It was a very difficult thing to do. The grounds of Sulis are gravel, So they make a fantastic noise as you run around, and it was all very exciting and it was a bit chaotic. To then come into this environment which was very still and very quiet. What I did to try and make them feel comfortable, because the contrast was so huge, was to take a little shot of them first, and they could come and look through the video and see a picture of themselves and see whether they liked it. It was kind of giving attitude, but in a different way. So obviously they're dressed in kind of hoodies or trainers or jeans, but because they're standing there with this kind of very dignified look, I think they kind of got what I was trying to do. Hopefully they will, and hopefully with the exhibition on Friday, which we're still in the process of putting together because it's all been such a kind of against the clock project, that the contrast will sit very well.
But it's not. They're still pictures.
No, they're not still pictures, but they're very slow pictures. It's the idea that when you become stately, if you see stately people, they move very slowly, and that's the same with great state occasions. That things will happen quite slowly at a kind of sort of a regal pace. So the video portraits are punctuated with the train going through as a kind of contrast, but the portraits of them are very still, but there is movement, but you have to really look, and also hopefully they're going to come along to the show and see themselves in a different way, being very, very still, because obviously all the kind of influences are about being very animated, the kind of MTV and all that kind of stuff on the internet. So this is kind of opposite, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see their reaction to seeing themselves in this very dignified way, very slow. So all their movements, so when they close their eye or open their eye or when they smile, it's all done very, very slowly. So it's going to be interesting to see that. They might hate it, which is fair enough, that's a reaction. But hopefully the two together, they're going to get a contrast feel of what we were trying to do. The idea is that they are the future. The show's about them, it's not about us. The idea of us putting in some of our work is to kind of show where we're coming from as artists.
What's been the best thing about doing this with these young boys?
Well, I suppose it's been madness. It's for me, it's kind of thrown me into a whole series of kind of relationships and meetings that wouldn't have otherwise happened. If I'd just been here as an artist, kind of gazing at my own navel, then that wouldn't have happened. And I feel like I've learned so much from meeting different people in the town, going out and meeting people who run kind of young people's groups. Just the bringing the whole thing together. That's been incredible, an incredible journey for me anyway. Because it's forced me to put myself out there and take risks, and because it's an unknown quantity of all the way through the whole process of whether it will happen or it won't happen. So it's very exciting, and the other side of it is that it's also very nerve-wracking, because obviously we can't do this without participation, and that's an unknown thing, because it takes a long time to build trust. So it's been a very ambitious project in that way, to try and build that trust so quickly and to make those connections so quickly. So it's been intense, exciting, and a little bit stressful.